will just leave that at 0 as well. So from there, I am pretty much ready to go ahead and open up this image, unless I feel like doing some further adjustments here with the tones. So if I want to brighten those highlights up a little bit, for example, or darken some of my shadows to create a little more drama, that looks okay to me. I'm actually going to take down the highlights a little bit. I want to keep as much detail as I can up there in the clouds. And then I can open the image. Alright, now I've got my image open in Photoshop, and just so that we can play around with it a little bit more easily here, I'm going to resize it. I'm going to cut it down to 72 pixels per inch, and about 12 inches wide should do it. Zoom back into that. I'm zooming in, incidentally, by pressing Control plus on the keyboard, which is the keyboard shortcut. And I'm also going to convert this to an RGB image just in case I want to tone it later. Okay, so my image is ready. What am I going to do with it next? Well, the whole point of this exercise file was to go from kind of a bland looking sky to something a little bit more dramatic, and I think we've done that. As a color image, this was really pretty boring, and now as black and white, especially with the blues darkened, it's a little bit dramatic. It's kind of cool. So why not push it a little bit further? We've got it open, we're in Photoshop, let's overdo it. I'm going to begin by creating a curves layer, and I'm going to click and drag on the lower part of this curve and just darken all of these dark tones in the image. Yeah, I'm really darkening them. Okay, and then if I want, I can also brighten those lighter tones back up like so. I like it somewhere right about there. Okay, now if I update my histogram, you can see that even though I've made these really dramatic changes since I started off with a 16-bit file, I've still got smooth tonal curves here within my histogram. I don't have any dropped out levels of gray. And of course, this is only an 8-bit histogram. All of the histograms within Photoshop display as 8-bit. So if this were a 16-bit histogram, I probably would see some dropped out shades of gray, but as I say, it's only an 8-bit one, so things look okay. Now, looking at my image here, I actually still have a pretty decent tonal range. As you can see in the histogram, I have a lot of tones that are really close to being black, but they are not actually black. There is still detail. There's separation between all of these tones. The same thing goes in the clouds. All of these clouds still actually have detail in them. And you can see up here at the top end of the histogram, all of this detail is still down here in Zone 9 and Zone 8 if you're familiar with the zone system. And if you're not, then, well, that's a little too complicated to get into at the moment. Maybe in a later video. But that is all just to say that we have a really nice range of different tones in here, from almost pure white to almost black, with a nice range of light grays and medium grays and dark grays and pretty much everything in between. However, if I think that this just doesn't look like the scene that I took a picture of, then I can go ahead and make additional changes. One thing that I think I probably will do is I'll lighten up the foreground just a little bit. And I'm going to do that, I think, manually by clicking on my layer mask on the curves layer. I'm going to get myself a paintbrush with black. I think I'll get a soft brush, and what I'm going to do is click on my layer mask just to make sure that I'm painting on that. I'm going to set my opacity down to somewhere around 30%, and I'm just going to paint over the foreground here. As you can see, that brings up some of the detail that I was missing. And if I want to go over that again, I can bring up a little bit more detail. You can see this happening on the adjustment layer. There's now kind of a gray line across the bottom, and that is blocking this adjustment layer from affecting the data below it. So there we are. I'm just going to paint on this a little bit further. Okay, and that looks about right to me. I like it like that. So maybe I'll do one more thing. I'll go ahead and tone the image. I'm going to add a gradient map, and I'm going to click on my gradient editor, and I think what I'll do is make this kind of a sepia tone, maybe just kind of a nice warm brownish color again, somewhere in here, a little bit darker I suppose for the dark end of things. Yeah, I like that right about there. And then on the bright end, I will also make that kind of a yellowy orange. Okay, and there we have it. Actually, looking at it now, I really don't like that gradient at all. Let me try that again. I think I'll actually lighten up that dark side of things. Get that into this range somewhere. I think I'll redden that up. Okay. There we go. That's a little bit better. And on the bright side, again, I think I'll make that a little bit brighter. Okay, there we go. I'm a little bit happier with that gradient. Of course, probably depending on your monitor, that might look either better or worse, but on my monitor, that looks pretty good. And now, just as a reminder of where we started off with, this was our original color image, and this is the more dramatic, kind of nice, chocolatey looking black and white conversion that we ended up with. Incidentally, probably as the final step of working on this image, I would go in and sharpen it. Filter, sharpen, I will probably use unsharp mask, or maybe in this case, smart sharpen. Oops, looks like I am on the adjustment layer. There's the background. Okay, so filter, smart sharpen, and I'm going to take a look at my detail here. I'm going to lower this down to about 0.6. And about 80%. Even that might be overdoing it just a little bit. This is a pretty small image, but I think that's okay for now. So I'll click OK and leave it at that. Okay, one more final thing before I close this image down. Suppose that you like these tones that you have mapped onto your image with the gradient map and you think you might want to use them again. Well, you can actually save them pretty easily using your gradient map adjustment layer. It's worth seeing how you do that. Here in your gradient editor, all you have to do is click New, and now this gradient is up here in your presets. And you can click OK, and if you ever open that again, here it is. And if you want to actually save all of these presets so that you can store them forever and ever, you just click Save, and you save them like you save anything else in Photoshop. Going to cancel that. Okay, and that is that.